Thank you, those who are joining us online as well. And everything that has happened thus far has happened in a way to bring us to this moment of hopefully opening the heart space in some way, cracking it wide open, if you will, to be and feel love. So today, our conversation is about desire, but desire and love are synonymous. And we've also said before that love and God are synonymous. And so this energetic that we're courting in this now moment is love. Love's divine. The song by Seal is one of my very favorites, for it is when I connect with love, I know my name. When we connect with love, when we connect with the desire of our hearts, we become acquainted with ourself. Not the separate self, but the divine self, the infinite self, the eternal self. And love is the access point to that, to experience it, to feel it. Love's divine is how I know my name. And so say that to the self. Love is how I know my name. And what? Yes. And like, what's in a name? Who cares about a name per se? But your name is a vibratory field, a vibratory extension and expression that is the imprint upon the soul of who you are, what you are, and how you serve. And every one of us here is an extension of love in some way, and some unique individuation of the infinite love that there is. So the name is the nature of who we are. And so to know our nature is to know ourselves as love. And not separate, but as an extension and an expression of Source. And so that is our access point to coming together, to unity, to love, to oneness, and thereby the remembrance of ourself. You see, that's what this gathering is about. This gathering is a return home to the divine self that is within each of us. That we can release and let go of personas that we take on in the world, and that we return always to love. In the Way of Mastery by Joshua Ben Joseph, it is a work that is the voice of the Christ. It is the voice of Jesus who walked this experience as a human and became a Christ. And the intention was never for him to be the only one. The intention is to say, there have been those before me, and there will be those who come after me who have actualized in a human experience what it means to be one with God and to be in the world but not of it. And that is what I mean when I talk about the Christ presence. It is that recognition of the name of love, to know that we come from love as love, and that we have extended forth as the effect of love itself. And so in that remembrance of ourselves as Christ, we follow this teaching of somebody who came before, an eternal being. Now here's the deal. If you're an eternal being and you come into this human experience and you're gifted as a teacher and you're viewed as a way shower and you're viewed as somebody who figured out the access point, the way, the Tao, and you're a teacher and people follow you, do you think that teaching ends when you lay this body down? I don't. I believe that teaching continues on through the voice that then becomes channeled as Christ. And that the message becomes, hey, all y'all, I walked this way. It's time for you to do it. And I'm going to requalify some of the things that were taught in my name that humanity got a little skewed. just a little off. And I'm going to keep teaching so that I can share with you the way. And so the material that I'm springboarding from is the way, the Tao of mastery. And it's calling us all forth to be masters. And the very first book is The Way of the Heart. I got to tell you, everything that comes from The Way of the Heart in the subsequent books, it's all the same teaching. And what we're going to do this month, what we're doing here in August, this month of August, is that we are choosing to walk forth as our teacher and way shower has. And he gives us 4 keys in order to be the creators of our experience, but not to create from separation, but to create as God would create through us, as love would create through us, to create as Christ. To create as Christ. You see, we've all learned the laws of manifestation, that it is done as you believe, right? The thoughts you think become things. We know that. And guess what? We've been pretty powerful creators, have we not? Tune into the news. Tune into your life just as it is and just as it isn't. There are things that you prefer that are happening in the experience of your life, and there are those things that you do not prefer. Would you not prefer to create consistently and deliberately as Christ creates? With the power of the source of all that is, that created cosmoses and universes that still extend out into creation. And so that's what we're talking about. And this very first key is about love. It's about desire. It's about realizing that we, each one of us individually and collectively, are already the byproduct of love. So, one of the quotes from this material says, if God had not desired to extend love, you would not exist. If God did not desire to desire that each of us is the object of God's desire to extend love, and thereby we exist. This is the same love that birthed the moon, the stars, and dimension upon dimension upon dimension. And that love is the source of our being, and that we are the effect of that love. So there's an exercise that, I begin with identity. Love's divine is my name. It helps me to remember my name. And even as Beth in her introduction said, this body goes by Beth, and we've practiced that many times. But when we're all mingling with each other, we might say, well, what's your name? And you give your name, and you might say, well, what do you do? Or how do you identify in the world? And you might say, I might say, well, my name's Claudia René. Sometimes I go by Reverend Claudia. It denotes that I play a particular role. I've qualified myself in a certain way to be in the world, to serve in a certain way. But that's not who I really am. Who and what I really am is spirit, unlimited and free, right? So the exercise in this says, the next time somebody asks you who you are, here's how you're supposed to reply now. Okay. Imagine yourself doing this. Who am I? Do you ask, who are you? Who am I? Who am I? I am the extension of love in form. I've never been born, and I will never taste death. I am infinite and eternal. I shine forth as a sunbeam to the sun. I am the effect of God's love. And I stand before you right now to love you. A little bit more compelling than my name's Claudia René, and sometimes it's Rev Claudia. So I'm going to ask you, who are you? And you're going to repeat this. Just try it on for yourself. Who are you? Say, who am I?
Who am I? I'm the extension of love.
I'm the extension of love in form. I've never been born. And I'll never taste death. I am infinite and eternal. I shine forth as the sunbeam to the sun. I am the effect of God's love. And look at a neighbor and say, I am here before you to love you. I am here to love you. I'm here to see who you are. I'm here to walk through heaven with you. And guess what? I'm taking you with me.
Guess what?
This is love. This is love, identifying as love first and foremost. Desire, my beloveds, desire is everything. Say, desire is everything.
Desire is everything.
It is the energy that brings forth all of the waves of creation. If you imagine creation as waves from the ocean, that desire is the thing, the energy that brings forth all of these waves of creation out of the depths of the ocean. And so how, can I hand this to you? Thank you, Rich. So how I describe desire, it absolutely has to do with love. And that as we begin, this first key is to follow the thread of desire. What do you love? What's my heart's desire? What do I want? And I begin to have this relationship with the self, this conversation. And when I ask the question, sometimes I get surface answers, like imagining a body of water. Sometimes I get the ideas that are just on the surface of the water. Well, right now, I might want to sit down. Right now, I might want to use the restroom. Right now, I might want to hang on the next word that she's going to say. Right now, I want to hold the hand of my beloved who's sitting next to me, right? And you just begin to notice what it is you want, what it is you desire. Somebody might be thinking right now, I just want to stand up and scream and run out the door, right? And so sometimes we can be afraid of the things that we desire. Like that wouldn't be a very good thing to do right now, right? But what we do is we begin to just notice, to ask the question, to listen, and to follow what the answer is. Every time I ask, what would I love? What do I want? What would I love right now? And we begin to cultivate the courage to be authentic and honest with ourselves. You see, some of us might be afraid to really delve into these questions because it might mess our very orderly life up, right? I've got everything in order, but I might find that that's not really what I want. I might have my orderly life fixed in such a way, but it's the way of my past or the way that somebody else thinks it ought to be for me. You see, it takes courage to become acquainted with yourself in this way and to begin to follow that thread and see where it leads. Now, the encouragement here is that if something pops up that seems ludicrous or outrageous, does it mean you got to do it? Do you have to act on it? That's the power that you have. You can sit right where you are at, imperceptible to anybody around you, and you can have an idea, and you can imagine it to its fruition and never move a muscle. And you can get to the conclusion of it and you can go, nah, I don't think I want to do that. Tony and I do that all the time when we go on trips. We go on trips and we pretend like we're actually going to live where we're going to visit. We totally try it on. We talk to people, we go everywhere that we can. We put on the hat that, okay, we're going to live here. What would it be like to live here? And we explore it. And we ask questions and we experience a culture and a country and a town. And then we go back home and we sit back out on the lanai and we go, nah, I don't think so. We're at play. Just because you have a desire for something in the moment doesn't mean that you have to act on it. And so what we're doing is that we are beginning to become in touch with the desires of our heart, the true desire of our heart. You see, in the way of mastery and the way Jesus teaches it is that we begin to court it and to have a relationship with those desires. And that as we follow those desires, it's as if we go from the surface of the water of the ocean. Maybe they're choppy waves, but we keep asking, what do I want? What do I want? What would I love? And the deeper that we go in that inquiry, we get to the depth of the mind and heart of God, the all that is, that has a desire that is a divine idea that is within each of us individually for the perfect and divine individuation of you as a soul that's to extend and express from the depth of that ocean as a wave that is magnificent and expresses, powered and fueled by the depth of the heart and mind of all that is. You see, you're not doing it yourself. Take a breath with me here. When I was a little girl, I grew up on a hill in Toledo, Ohio, which if any of you have been there, it's flat. But my parents picked a lot that was on a hill, and they built a house there. And that house and that property butted up against a woods. And in the woods, if you went down the hill into the woods, there was a creek. I don't know why, as a little girl, I had the desire to be in that creek. I had the desire to be in those woods. And my mom would open up the screen door and we'd all go run out to play. And she would always say, don't go in the creek. And I'd be, before that screen door would slam, my little legs would be running out to go jump in that creek. It was the desire of my heart as a little girl to be lost in the woods, to follow its pathways, to walk and to dream and to explore and to imagine, and to follow the creek where it would go. And in the wintertime, that creek would become ice. I still wanted to be on the creek. And I would lace up my ice skates and I'd ice skate on the creek. And I could go so much further. Then when I got older, I would cross-country ski on the creek. And it would be silent. And my heart and my imagination, would grow and expand. That creek is called Swan Creek. And Swan Creek, if you follow it long enough, goes into the Maumee River. If you follow the Maumee River, not far, it ends up going into Lake Erie. If you follow Lake Erie long enough, and it's a long, long way, you end up at Niagara Falls. And Lake Erie goes into Lake Ontario. And Lake Ontario then goes to St. Lawrence, I think, the St. Lawrence River. That takes you to the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. Now, when I was a little girl, following the desire to be in the woods and to follow the creek, I didn't know that it could eventually end up at the Atlantic Ocean. Not sure I wanted to venture that far away from home. Not sure I'd make it back at 6 o'clock for dinner, right? And so we don't always know where the desires of our heart lead. But this pathway is to explore it and to follow it. My dad used to tell stories. And the stories that he would tell, I became very familiar with. Anybody in your life tell stories over and over and you kind of know the story? That's how, or jokes, right? Jokes are a good example, right? And so when he became an older man, I don't know if he just kind of lost interest in telling the middle part of the story, but he'd start at the beginning and then he would say, and then one thing led to another, and then he'd tell the end of the story. Following the creek, in all the different places I said it went to lead to the ocean, eventually it leads to the depth of the ocean. One thing in my life has led to another to bring me to where I am today, such that I know as I look back, and I bet the same thing is true for you, is that your trajectory of your life has followed the desires of your heart. And it leads you in your life. Jeshua is asking us to be very intimate with these desires of our heart and to sit in our meditation and to inquire and to ask. Now, what I can tell you today is that the desire of my heart 20 years ago, 25 years ago, to be a spiritual counselor was like going into the creek. Once I became a spiritual counselor, it's like I ended up in the Maumee River, which brought me into ministerial school, and then I ended up in Lake Erie, which brought me to being a minister. You guys get my point, right? Had I known in the beginning what the eventuality might be, the one thing that led to another that led to the true desire, I might not have followed that path. I know I'm on a need-to-know basis, because if I knew the whole picture, I might not do it, right? But in the safety of this space, I can follow that thread of desire and never leave this space. Now, what I know today is that it has looked like the desire of my heart was to help people find God, to help people feel the power and the presence of love, to guide and inspire people to their own divine identity, to see a world in which individuals are expressing what they love. And then imagining that as we all do that, everybody's in their right and perfect place, doing exactly what contributes to the whole in perfect ways. That there's a fearlessness and an unconditioned way of being that if we trust it, it works out perfectly and it takes you to the ocean, right? And so it looks like maybe my desire was to be a minister. No. My desire is to love and to stand before you to know that I am love and I am of that source. And I'm here to love you. It just looks like I do it in a certain way, but you do it in a different way, and you do it in a different way. And when we all have the courage to follow the true desire of our heart, heaven on earth, here now, extends and expresses as creation. Take a breath here with me. Oh. Jeshua teaches that we are all the infinite, ceaseless creators of our experience. And the first key to this is desire. What do you love? What do you want? If there is an assignment for you between now and next week or now and whenever, it's to begin to journal this, to sit down and to ask, what would I love? What do I want? And to write it down and pause and take a breath. And then ask again. Don't edit. Discover what you discover. And as you keep asking, you will learn more. And if you do that every day, you'll begin to see a pattern. For me, it became less about form, and it became more about the quality that I would experience. And I would always come to, I want peace. I want joy. I want fulfillment in what I'm doing. You see what it looks like, whether it's a creek or a river or the lake or the ocean. It's all carrying you to yourself, to love. And love helps us to know our name, ourselves, our identity. The desires of your heart, the true desires of your heart are placed there by God. And within those desires is the promise of the fulfillment. It's the divine ideas that are yours to sow as seeds and connect with, to nourish, to love, to court. So we take a breath here. Who am I? Who are you? You are love. Say, I am love. I am loving. I'm lovable, now and forevermore. I go forth and multiply the consciousness of love. I stand before you to love you. And so it is. Amen. Amen. Amen.